Hello, I'm Corey Hello, and welcome to another episode of Critimation, where I review animated TV shows and films. As always, I do not own any of these films or shows. They are property of their respected owners. Before we start, I'd like to thank all my loyal viewers for their comments, suggestions, and support. I currently have about 7-ish subscribers, and if I reach 15, I'll be opening my Discord channel so that people can be able to comment, make suggestions, and maybe even collaborate so I can cover more diverse topics in films that I feel would be hard to talk about without having interviewed someone with a similar background to said film. Also, beginning this month, I will limit the amount of videos I make, aiming for about 2 to 3 videos per month. So without further ado, let's get started. For today's episode, we will be doing a special theme. The topic, the cartoon protagonist versus the animator. Hence our first cartoon, Yakko Amakko, directed by Chuck Jones in 1953. At first the cartoon starts off as a Musketeers short, with Daffy in the lead role. But during the intro, the background disappears. So Daffy asks the animator to make a scenery, but they continue to draw the wrong setting, thereby forcing Daffy to change costume in between settings. Eventually, Daffy acknowledges the animator once again in an attempt to explain what an animated cartoon is, only to end up being erased. Once redrawn as a cowboy, he attempts to play the guitar only for there to be no sound. Once the sound's turned on, it's all mismatched. Even his own voice becomes just random sound effects. Once back to normal, Daffy once again demands that there be some scenery. The animator then draws a pencil background. When Daffy asks for color, he ends up being the one colored. Then he gets redrawn as whatever this thing is. After change back to normal, he is put on a deserted island. When asked for a close-up, he's barely given what I would consider a close-up, then an extreme close-up. Then the top of the screen starts to turn black, falling literally on Daffy. After tearing it up, Daffy demands that they start the picture, only for the end to show up. After pushing it away, Daffy tries to compromise with the animator. But as he tries to make use of what little time is left, the film is caught between frames, making a clever gag in which results in 2 Daffys. After one is erased, the other becomes a pilot, and after a series of misfunctions, including crashing, the parachute being turned into an anvil, and then the anvil being turned into a shell, which then explodes, Daffy completely loses it and demands to know who the animator is. He then gets the door shut in his face, literally. We then discover that the animator is none other than Bugs Bunny, who then goes to state that he's a stinker. Considered the peak of Chuck Jones as a director, the goal of Yakko Amakko was to showcase the strengths of Daffy's personality. Even without the background, voice, or trademark appearance, he's still Daffy. From this point on, Jones's use of characterization would transform the Looney Tunes from just screwballs and hecklers to fully realized characters with their own unique personalities. I would recommend this cartoon not just because of its significance, but because it would also inspire later rip-offs that would come, as we will soon talk about. Our next topic is entitled Character in Search of an Artist. This episode of the new Looney Tunes show is better known by fans as Rabbit Rampage 2. The original was basically Duck Amuck with Bugs Bunny. The episode begins with a Star Wars parody, which quickly turns into just a blank background. As Bugs Bunny reminds the artist about the script, the shenanigans begin. Among them include adjusting the volume, doing a crude animation loop, making Bugs look like a baby, and using stock backgrounds such as space, a volcano, and the ever-cliche train railroad bit. Thankfully, the computer freezes up, although the animator forgets to save before he restarts. Bugs then demands he goes back to his rabbit hole, which then leads to his body parts getting out of proportion. The artist then swaps Bugs Bunny's head with that of other Looney Tunes characters. Then, as a real treat, Bugs Bunny transforms to his prototype from the old days, and then to his Lunatics Unleashed counterpart, which they make fun of. Bugs then breaks the pen, which results in him getting a bill. He is then strapped to a rocket and hits a brick wall, which goes on repeatedly due to the animator messing with the timeline. Bugs pleads with the animator to give him a happy ending, and is given a calm background with a banjo to play. But things quickly go bad, and the animator moves everything to the trash. It's then revealed that the animator is Daffy Duck himself. Kind of a poetic justice considering the previous topic. I would recommend this episode because it not only pays tribute to Duck Amuck, but it also updates the tactics that the animator uses to torment the cartoon character. In this case, computer software and a stylus for drawing. The last entry is entitled Yakko Amakko. As you might have guessed, this is from the Animaniacs reboot. The episode begins with Yakko eating ice cream. The animator then draws a hole that he falls in. She then copies and pastes the hole up in the sky, causing him to fall to the ground. The ice cream is then erased and replaced with Pepe Le Pew, much to Yakko's discomfort. Pepe then gets erased, much to his objection, an obvious reference to how he's no longer acceptable in today's culture. After being bombarded with several scoops of rum raisin ice cream, Yakko calls out the animator for ripping off Duck Amuck, resulting in all but his mouth getting erased, and then his body being drawn in the Startoon style, which, as we all know, is not the best animated episodes. After a quick head separated from body gag, Yakko tries to win the animator over by singing Yakko's World for like the millionth time. The animator then replaces his voice with that of Ralph's, then Dot, and then Wacko. Cue easy Beatles reference. The animator then replaces the background with a Van Gogh-ish style, then Picasso, and then Salvador Dali. She then resizes Yakko, copy and paste him to make extras, and finally add extra arms to him. At this point, Yakko's so enraged he grabs the pen and literally pulls the animator into the cartoon. But after the animator pleads with him to spare her, he decides to let her go, on the condition he does him a favor, which involves tormenting all the antagonists in the show. And while it is one of the better episodes of the Animaniacs reboot, it is not as strong as the previous segment, even though it uses more updated tactics to torment the animated character. But I will give it props for referencing Duck Amuck as its inspiration, though. Thanks for tuning in to Critimation. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And follow me on Twitter. Or support me on Patreon. I'm open to suggestions, and I will see you next time.